We're live?
Yes, we're live.
Okay. Hi, welcome to our Wednesday virtual clinic. So I'm Jackson, mechanic and sales associate here at Bikes Not Bombs, and I'll be running the ABCs of bike maintenance. So we're going to talk about how to put air in your tires, how to check your brakes to make sure they're working well and safe, and when you need to replace them, and how to clean and lubricate your chain. So we're going to focus on those three things. So yeah, a little bit about me. So I've been working at Bikes Not Bombs since last July. It's been great. I've learned a ton since I started. I've been biking in Boston for about 7 years, 6.5 years. I've been working on my bike for that time, and then working as a mechanic for the past 9 or 10 months. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we want to talk about is air. So when you're riding your bike, one of the most important things to check is that you have enough air in your tires. So a number of things can happen if there's not enough air in your tires. The first thing you'll notice is it's harder to ride the bike. So it can be like 40 or 50% harder to ride the bike if you don't have air in your tires. So like this bike, if we look over here, it seems like it's got some air in the tires, but the pressure is actually pretty low. So I'm squeezing it and it feels like it has air, and maybe you'll ride it and it seems okay. But if we put air in it, it's gonna make a major difference. So it'll be a lot easier to ride, it'll be a lot more efficient. And the other major thing is you're less likely to get a flat. So when you don't have air in your tires, it's much more likely that you'll get a flat tire, and you don't want that to happen. So we should understand a couple things about tires. I'm sure you all watched Ben's flat fixing clinic last week and learned everything about tubes and tires, but just to do a very quick recap, one of the first things to understand about a bicycle tire, or really most tires for cars and motorcycles as well, is that there's a difference between a tire and a tube. So the tire is the harder rubber outside part, so this is the tire, and then inside that is an inner tube. So when you get a flat tire, it's your inner tube that's popping or punctured somewhere. So this is what we're going to inflate air into, is the inner tube itself. There are tubeless tires, but most of the tires that are on your bike are going to will have a tube inside of them. So the second thing to know about tubes and tires, so specifically tubes, is the two major types of valves on a tube. So there are Presta valves, which are the skinny valves that you see on road bikes, and then you've got Schrader valves, these fat little guys. So these are more common on a wider tire, so anything, really from 25 to 40C or even bigger, all the way up to fat tires will have like a Schrader valve. And then sort of like, a lot of tires can have the Presta valve too. They're a little more common on like road bikes, so thinner, 18 to 32C. That's the width of the tire in millimeters. Will have Presta valves. So you want to make sure you know which valve type your tube has before you put air in it. So those are valves. So how are you going to put air in your tire? So you need a pump, right? So at a shop, we use often an air compressor. You might have like an electric one in your garage. These are nice for getting air into your tube quickly, but not everyone's going to have one of those. It's much more likely that you have just a standard pump. So this is just a regular Pedro's pump, but importantly, it's got a gauge on it. So this gauge measures the pressure, or kind of how hard your tire feels. And so we just talked about Schrader and Presta valves, and so your pump is going to have one of two types of valve openings. So the bigger one for a Schrader valve is on here, and this is a nice pump with both valve types. So this one's got a Presta valve as well. Some of them are even dual valves, so it'll just be like one hole that you can use on either a Presta or Schrader. So, all right, so let's do a quick demo. Let's put some air. We'll start with this tube here. So we've got a tube, with the Schrader valve. We're gonna go ahead and push this all the way on. And then what you really wanna make sure of is that you lock it. So if it's like this, it's not gonna lock. And of course, there's a little rubber ring in here that holds it on. So we've got that, and then we wanna lock it. So now we can go hands-free. And it'll just hold it on there well. All right, so we should see this tube inflate if everything goes well. So here we go. Look at that. The tube is inflating, and now we can float down the river in our sweet bike inner tube. So that's got some air in it now. Cool. And so that'll hold air. And so the valve is this little mechanism in here. So that is going to allow air in and out when you press it. So there's a valve cap to keep that clean and from being pressed in accidentally. But if you don't have a valve cap, it's not the end of the world. It's still going to hold air. So that's an inner tube. Put that next to the tire. And then let's pump up a tire on an actual bike. So I've got a nice Peugeot. This is an example of one of our City Basic refurbished bikes. If you're interested, you can check out our website, shop.bikesnotbombs.org. You can find bikes like this. So this one, I've let some of the air out of the tire. So I'm feeling it. It's definitely rideable, but let's see how much air is really in this guy. So what I'm looking for is how much air I should be putting in. So I'm gonna check the outside of the tire, and it's gonna tell me. Sometimes it's a little tricky to find. So right on this side, if we come here, all the way over here, it's telling me we can go up to 102 PSI for this. So it'll usually give you a maximum pressure to put in the tire. So we're gonna go to about 100 PSI. So that's pounds per square inch. So that's measuring the amount of force per little piece of area on the tire. So let's undo the valve cap, put our pump on it. Sometimes you have to like squeeze where the valve is if it's really low, just to hold it so you have enough to grip, and then we're gonna lock it. So now I can take my hands off. And so this gauge, if we look closely down here, if you can see that, it's reading 20 pounds per square inch. So 20 PSI on the gauge out of 100. So that's 20% full. So that's really low actually. So even though it feels kind of like, you know, you've got air in your tire, that's actually not good at all. It's gonna be really hard to ride your bike and really likely that you get a flat. So as part of the first major step of basic maintenance, we're gonna use our pump and put air in the tire. Some of you might have a portable pump, which is cool if you're doing long distance trips. And you need to do this when you're changing a flat, because you watched Ben's video, and now you're on the road changing your flats. You don't need Bikes Not Bombs anymore. Teach a man to fish. Okay. So this tube is now pumped up all the way to 100 PSI. And you can go up to the maximum, but maybe, somewhere in the middle of the minimum and maximum. This one didn't give a range. Most of them will give a range. So if you go 10 PSI off the max, that's usually pretty safe. So 90 PSI is perfectly fine for most purposes. So now when I feel it, it feels rock solid, which is something that people aren't really necessarily used to when putting air in a tire. So that'll feel a lot easier to ride, so you'll notice a major difference when you do that. So this bike has air in the tire, so we're obviously going to want to do both. But let's go over here and look at a Presta valve, just so we can kind of make sure we understand both valve types. So this is my bike, which needs a lot of love, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity to do some basic maintenance on my own bike. Because if you buy a new bike, it's just going to need some routine maintenance, just like anything else. So the more you do that, the less you'll need major repairs. So you want to keep your bike in good shape. All right, so now I'm looking at a Presta valve, so you can see that. So it's a little bit skinnier. This one's 32 millimeters. They come in different sizes depending on what you need. And so the major thing with the Presta valve that's different is this little cap here. So that's what's going to allow me to put air in it. So if it's closed and you try and put air in it, it's not going to work at all, and you're going to get frustrated. So you want to open this cap, and so it's still not going to let air out, but this allows you, if you push it down, it's now just like a normal valve. Right, so I'm looking at my tire. This tube needs some air. So now I'm going to use the other side, pop that guy on, and then lock it. Right, so that's important. You want to lock it. And then same thing. So this one is not even reading at all on the gauge. So that means I'm making my commute a lot harder than it needs to be because I don't have air in my tires. Cool. So now we're up at 90 PSI, and that feels a lot better. So, air in your tires, that is the first thing that I wanted to cover for basic maintenance. So the next thing, we go back over here, is brakes. So let's talk about brakes. So brakes are probably the most important part of your bike. So if you don't have your brakes, you can't stop. And if you're going down a hill and your brakes aren't working, it's pretty scary. So you really want to make sure that your brakes are functioning well. So we want to just make sure we kind of understand a little bit about brake pads and how they wear and when they should be replaced. So I've got a couple of sets of brake pads over here. So these are called X-Cut brake pads. They're kind of, you'll find them on a lot of vintage bikes, on a lot of bikes we refurbish. So, there's a rubber compound. I don't know exactly what it's made out of. Some other people probably a little more knowledgeable about that. But there are basically like slightly harder rubbers like this black stuff, and then these softer salmon compounds that are a little bit softer. They work well in wet weather. And so the main thing that you want to understand about brake pads is when to replace them or when they need to be replaced. So the thing that you're going to notice is that when you squeeze your brake, it's moving a lot more. You get a lot more travel on the brake lever, and you're just not stopping that well. And it's very likely that your pads are wearing down. So the friction of the brake has worn away this rubber, and so they'll wear thin. I should have grabbed an example of a really worn one, but I wanted to show you these lines here. So when these lines, and you'll see different types on different brake pads, when those wear all the way down, then it's a good time to replace your pads. It means you've used up all the meat in the brake pad, and it needs to get changed. So there's different types of brake pads. Some of them have inserts. So for this one, let's see. So it's got a little insert, and I'll do a live demo. So we'll pop this insert out. It's got kind of a shoe and then a pad. And so for these, you don't even need to replace the whole brake pad. These you can actually just replace the inserts. Right, so these also have wear lines. And so when those wear down, you can just grab some new inserts, pop them in your shoes, and then reinstall the brake pad. Let's see. Right, so it looks like that's getting caught a little bit. There we go. Cool. And then we would reinstall that. Let's see. The other thing to remember about brake pads, or to check, is if you've like left your bike sitting for, let's say, the winter, you leave it outside, or it's just been years and you pull it out of your basement, the pad can get really hard. And in that case, it's not going to be able to have as much stopping power. It's going to be really slick and hard. And so you just want to check for that too. So if it looks really old and hard, you want to replace it with something that's a little more soft and supple. All right, so those are sort of brake pads for non-disc brakes. The other type of brake is a disc brake, which will have pads with compound. And let's go ahead and just open these up. And we'll just look. Stuck in there. So on disc brake pads, they're going to have this organic material that will wear out a lot slower. So this this compound will wear out. It's just obviously a lot thinner and a lot harder. So this is rubbing on the brake rotor. So let's go look at an example. So let's come over and check out a bike with disc brakes. So this is a Bianchi C Sport 1. So it's got disc brakes. So disc brakes, if you guys have those, are you'll notice they've got a little bit more stopping power. They work very well in the rain. And what's happening is the disc brakes, so this caliper, let's see if we can see it. Yeah, you can see this caliper. It's got the brake pad in it, and it's clamping the rotor. So that's what a disc brake is doing. It's clamping the rotor, and so it will wear out. It's just gonna wear out a lot slower. And so you need to remove the brake pads. So there's a little pin system. So you would get some pliers and unclip that, pull it out, and remove your disc brake pads. And so you'll notice slightly different symptoms. I mean, you'll notice that if we come up here, again, same thing. Your lever is gonna, rather than being roughly 2 fingers in, it's gonna be all the way down to 1 finger when you pull it, or it might even be hitting the handle, which means you've worn out the distance on the brake pad and it needs to be changed. Or worst case scenario, you'll hear squeaking. When you've really worn it down, you can start to get like metal to metal contact on the rotor, and then it's really time to change your disc brake pads. So these will last anywhere from like a year to 2 or 3 years, depending on how often you ride. So again, just, basic maintenance. You want to make sure your disc brake pads are in good shape. So those are disc brakes. There are multiple types of brakes. I would say there's 3 or 4 very common ones. So you've got cantilever brakes like this, which use a sort of cable pull system. So it has a straddle wire around it, and then when you pull the brake cable, it's gonna pull on this clamp here and pull the straddle wire. So those are cantilever brakes. So you'll see those on older bikes, on this Mixty bike. Then you have kind of more standard side pull brake calipers that I have on my bike. So a lot of road bikes have these. So it's just pulling the cable on the side. And you'll see a variety of brake pads that you can use on these brake calipers. These are both using like older X-Cut style brake pads. And then, so you got side pull, cantilever, and then the other one I wanted to show you guys was V-brakes. So these are very common. So you'll have 2 arms on either side. So these are common on mountain bikes, really any type of bike. I would say these are one of the most common types of brakes. And you'll see, different pads. These are inserts on these that I showed you earlier. And so, of course, when the pad wears out, when it wears down to those lines like we talked about, you're going to want to replace it. And then the other thing that I'll just briefly mention without going too deep into detail is a brake adjustment. So, hopefully in a few months, assuming things settle down a little bit and we can do tool time, it's canceled for a while, so no promises on when that will resume, but that's something that would be a good tool time project, is to adjust your brake and make sure that it's really functioning smoothly. So replacing the pads, if your brakes are adjusted okay, you can just get away with swapping out the pads. But if they're rubbing a bunch or just not adjusted properly, there's a more detailed process called a brake adjustment, where we would adjust the spring. So this arm has a spring on it that we can adjust with this screw. The length of the cable will set the distance of the brake pad from the rim. And then the tension, there's various ways to adjust the tension with a barrel adjuster, etc. So that's more advanced, so we don't want to go into that. So we'll just say, we can adjust your brakes at Bikes Not Bombs, or we're happy to help you work through that in tool time if you would like to learn. So I'll just do a quick swap for one of the pads. So, let's say my pads are worn, it's down past the line, no braking power. I'm confident I'm gonna replace my own brake pads. So I've got a 10 millimeter wrench. I'm gonna pop this nut off. And then take this out. I'm going to take a sip of coffee. It's crucial. You gotta take a sip of coffee, or whatever your beverage of choice is. So let's pop this new guy in. Don't drop the washer. And it can be as simple as this. So obviously we can adjust where it is. Sometimes I like to just squeeze the brake so I know that it's centered and that the angle is correct, so that it's hitting the wall of the wheel just right. And then I'll finger tighten that, and then it'll twist on you. So you want to hold it and it'll move too. So tighten it, and then I'm kind of just putting a little force to prevent. I'm rotating in one direction. I don't want it to rotate, so I'm just holding it. And then, maybe just rotate that down a bit. So we've swapped out a brake pad. So, you do that for all 4 of your brake pads, and it is something that anyone is capable of doing. So that, I think, is almost all I wanted to say about brakes. The other thing is if your wheel wall is rubbing, so if this part, the wheel wall, is like rubbing the brake pad, you're riding your bike, it's harder than it should be, and you look back and your wheel is just, it keeps touching the brake pad, and you don't want it to do that. It should really be free and clear of the brake pad. And so one thing that could be happening is your wheel may be out of true. So for a wheel to be true, that means that it is spinning. I'm just looking for a wheel, but we'll use this one. So that means that when it's spinning, and so if we come around and look at it from the back, we want the wheel to be spinning in a plane. So we don't want it to be wobbling in and out of a plane. So this is a Bikes Not Bombs refurbished bike, which means the wheels are pretty darn true. This one could use just the slightest adjustment. So if your wheel's not true, it's wobbling out of the plane, if it's really bad, that may be causing it to rub on the brake pad. So that's a separate issue, which again, we could take care of during tool time, provided we reopen at some point for tool time, or you can just drop it off and we're happy to true your wheel. So that's another slightly more advanced maintenance that you won't need all that often. Okay. A, B, what comes next? C, that's right, C. So chain, the chain. So we want to make sure our chains are in good shape. So this is a bicycle chain, connects the cranks to the freewheel or cassette. So it's part of the drivetrain, which allows power to be transferred from the bottom bracket area to the wheel. So it's another very important part of your bike, right? If anything in your chain breaks, you're not going to be riding. You're going to be going to a bike shop or fixing it yourself. So we want to keep this in good shape. And so the most common thing that needs to be taken care of, the simplest basic maintenance for a chain is keeping it cleaned and lubricated. So those are two separate things. So we want to make sure that the chain looks nice and clean, that it's not gunky, covered in dirt. Maybe you were mountain biking, riding in the rain, riding in the winter, strapping on your snow goggles, really getting out there and your chain is just garbage. And you need to clean it. So it's like brushing your teeth. It's something you just got to do. You don't have to do it every day or twice a day, but you should do it every week, every couple weeks. The important thing is that it's nice and clean. That way it's spinning smoothly and you're not adding a lot of unnecessary friction. So having a really dirty, gunky chain is not very efficient. So we'll want to clean it, and then we'll want to keep it lubricated to prevent, little debris and stuff from getting in the rollers of the chain. So we want to have the actual rollers, so the things that are able to spin and bend like this, moving smoothly. So we want to make sure they're well lubricated. And one more little thing is you just want to make sure that there's no kinks in your chain. So if it's kind of stuck like this at any point, you're going to hear like a clunk clunk sound. It's more common when you're replacing a chain and you've pushed in a chain pin and it's just too tight. But these should be in general moving nice and smooth. So cleaning and lubricating the chain. So the first thing we're going to do is clean the chain. So what can we use to clean our chain? Well, you can use a bunch of different things. So I've got a few different solvents to use on my chain to get the gunk off. I've got a Pedro's degreaser. So this is a nice, it says solvent free, so I guess there's no solvents, but it is some type of liquid. I don't know the chemistry in this guy, but that will get the grease off your chain. This is pig juice, which was drained from a live pig like an hour ago. Just kidding. I don't know what pig juice is, but it is a degreaser that will get the grease off of your chain. And you can also just use, this label's not right, but this is just Simple Green. It's similar to like soapy water, basically, just a really simple solvent. So any of these are fine. So really, even if you just got like a little bit of dish soap and some water, that'll work just fine to clean your chain. So let's give it a shot. Which potion do I want? Let's do let's do degreaser. So we'll take some degreaser and I'm gonna clean my bike chain because it needs it. So let's go over to this Pook. And as you can see, it's been a while since I last clean my chain. I did brush my teeth this morning, so, you know, just my bike chain needs cleaning. It's pretty dirty, pretty gunky, if you can see. So we want to get that off and get it kind of looking clean, like bare metal almost. So I'm gonna take a rag or an old t-shirt or whatever. I'm gonna put this orange, a lot of times it's like citrusy, degreaser. You should be more careful than me. And what I'm gonna do, I'll come down here. Again, if you don't have a, or not again, but if you don't have a stand, you can flip your bike upside down to be able to easily move the pedals. All right, I'm gonna take a seat and I'm just gonna pedal backwards so I'm not spinning the wheel and just really get in there. So there's different brushes you can get. There's something called a grunge brush, which is nice. What are the kids calling this? ASMR. See, feels good. We're cleaning our chain. It's going from gunky to clean. Let's see. So, you know, I'm putting a little pressure on it. I'm almost like grabbing it. And yeah, you really just kind of keep going until it feels nice and clean. So you can see this rag is really taking some gunk off. And yeah, so it shouldn't take you, you know, forever. Once you get used to doing it, it can, you know, be like a 5 to 10 minute job. I used to do it before I would, you know, take my bike out in the morning a lot of times if it looked rough. I would leave like a little degreaser by the doorway and a brush or something and just kind of make a habit out of it. All right. Try not to get your fingers caught in here. Promise that does not feel good. So just, yeah, make sure you've actually, you know, just be careful. All right. So I kind of got this looking a lot better. So now we can see that a lot of the gunk is off. And so now I'll take a cleaner, drier part of the rag and just get the excess degreaser or whatever you're using off the chain. Again, just putting a little pressure on it, spinning it, wiping it, whatever you gotta do. Right? All right, that's almost shiny, we'll call it. Yeah, you know, you can take your time and really make sure you got it clean. So depending on how OCD you are, you know, you can really get in and do a nice job. But for the most part, you really just need some degreaser or spray it a bunch with soapy water and just kind of run a rag over it. All right, so that's looking pretty good. So we want to clean the chain and then we want to lubricate it. So once you've really dried this off, you will have wiped off all of the lubrication or a lot of it. And so we want to just make sure we get some lubricant back on the chain so that it doesn't dry out and get rusty. So there are a few different types of lubricants that you can use. So the most common that you'll find and that we sell as well are T9. So this is a pretty generic waterproof lubrication. You can use it on a lot of bike parts. It's really pretty good universal lubricant. So if your brakes start to get, you know, a little sticky around the springs, or, you know, just you need a little bit of lube, this is good to use. The next one I have here is called Rock and Roll. It says it's the king of lubes, self-proclaimed king of lubes. And this is a 2-in-1 cleaner and lubricant. So this has probably a little degreasing fluid or something as well. And it's just a thinner, lighter lube that also can act as a cleaning agent. So rather than cleaning it with a degreaser and then using some type of lubricant, you can use like a 2-in-1 that you can use to both clean and lube your chain. So if you use this, you wouldn't have to go through the next step of lubricating. There's also Tri-Flow, which is a good lubricant, and then Pedro Synlube is like a wet lube, so it's a bit thicker, a bit more viscous, so it kind of like pulls up. You can see that versus something like this, which is going to be more liquidy and thinner, so you can really see that. Don't put it in your coffee. That will wake you up. All right, so I'm going to use a wet lube on my chain. So, you know, everybody has their preferences with lube. Some people feel that this kind of attracts a little bit more gunk, but it's also, you know, it's really forming a thicker layer on the metal in the chain, so it's able to keep stuff out of the rollers a little bit better. So in really wet riding conditions, it can be nice to use a wet lube. So you don't need that much, and you really just want to get it into the rollers. So I'll just kind of spin the chain backwards and just put a few drops in. And you really just need to get it on the chain. So you don't need to like get it all over the freewheel or anything like that. So I'll just put kind of a generous amount. And then that's it. So a lot of times you will notice a pretty immediate difference when you clean and lube your chain well. It'll feel easier to ride. It'll just feel smoother in general when you're pedaling and shifting. So that is the chain. The last thing I want to say about the chain, to kind of touch on a more advanced maintenance topic, is when you might need to replace your chain. So when the chain itself wears out and it's not just a matter of lubricating it. So the most common thing that happens with chains that would cause them to need to be replaced is they stretch out. So over time, just the chain will, just in these rollers here, I'm not sure exactly, I need to read up on this, where the stretch occurs. I don't think it's the actual metal face plates, but nevertheless, the chain will stretch out, so it's just length will stretch out over time, and the distance between the rollers will increase. And you can measure that pretty precisely with a chain checking tool, or you bring it to Bikes Not Bombs. To Tool Time, if you don't have one of these, or you just bring it here and we check it for you. We do free estimates, so happy to do that. All right, so this is a chain checking tool from Park Tool. It has a nice little scale from 0 to 1, and it's going to tell us the distance between these rollers, so how stretched it is. And so a brand new chain will be somewhere between 0 and 0.5, and then as you ride and commute, it'll start to creep up, and once you get up to like 0.75, anything above that, you should probably think about replacing your chain. So the most common thing that you're going to run into with a stretched out chain, so you got a new bike, you've been riding it for a year, everything's great, you're at a red light, you put all your weight on your pedal and you just hear like a ka-thunk. And what has happened is your chain has slipped because it's stretched out. And as that happens, the freewheel will also wear. So the little grooves in between these teeth, because the chain is stretched out, it'll start to wear into here, and it'll just get to the point where, and the tips will wear out too, and it'll just get to the point where it slips over a tooth, and you can really feel that, and it's pretty annoying and can be a little dangerous depending on where you are. All right, so I'm gonna put this on 0 and insert it into my chain like that, and then I'm just gonna push, and Jackson needs a new chain, huh? It's at 0.75. So yeah, so I'm just looking at it. It's at 0.7, we'll call it. So I'm pretty close. I do commute every day, so I'm not super surprised, but yeah, it's not all the way out at 1. So it's just getting to the point where it could be replaced. If you're not noticing any skipping, you're okay. I mean, it's really once you start to notice symptoms that you should definitely replace it. And so generally, you want to replace both the chain and the freewheel or cassette. So that's the last thing I wanted to say about chains. And I think that concludes the ABCs of bike maintenance. So easy as 1, 2, 3. And remember, always be closing. I don't know. I think that's it. That's all I got.
All right. From our live viewers, do we have any questions?
Oh, questions. I need coffee for that.
I'll just give them another 30 seconds for questions. If not, we will be having another clinic. When's our next clinic?
When's our next clinic? I didn't see anything on the calendar. Probably next Wednesday, I would imagine.
Yeah, so join us next Wednesday. And feel free to ask us any questions on our Facebook page, or you can comment on this video after the fact and we'll get to it. You can also email the shop or send us a message directly. We'd be happy to take care of you.
Absolutely, yeah. So, right, email the shop. You can use the chat feature on our website. Call us anytime we're open, and we're happy to help. We love talking about bikes, so I hope this tutorial was, clinic was useful and helpful. It really does make a major difference to just do those 3 basic things. It'll keep your bike running smoother for a lot longer, and it'll be a much easier ride. So
we did get one question. It said, how do I know if my chain is stretched?
Stretched. How do you know if your chain is stretched? So you want to use a chain checking tool, and if it's reading between 0.75 to 1 or above that, so if you put it in, right, and we pop our chain checking tool in here, and we measure, this is a new bike, so the chain's right at 0.5 where it should be, but if it's going all the way up to like 1, then your chain is stretched and it needs to be replaced.
Very cool. All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.